Alex was only 15 when the world he trusted began to crumble. In a quiet, rain-soaked town where tradition often spoke louder than love, he made a choice braver than most adults ever could. He told the truth about who he was. It was a calm evening. The scent of dinner still hung in the air as Alex sat across from his parents. His hands trembled beneath the table, his voice barely a whisper. "Dad, Mom, there's something I need to say." His father, Richard, looked up mid-bite. His mother, Linda, kept her eyes fixed on her plate as if she already knew. "I'm gay." The words were simple, but they landed like thunder. Richard froze, his fork suspended in the air. Linda's hands tightened around her napkin. For a few unbearable seconds, silence ruled the room. Then Richard erupted. "You've shamed this family." His voice rose, louder than the storm outside. "Do you understand what you've done? What will people say?" Alex's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone," he said softly. "I just needed you to know who I really am." Richard's face twisted with anger. "That's not honesty."
"That's disgrace."
"You're no son of mine. Get out." Alex turned to Linda, silently pleading for comfort, but she wouldn't meet his gaze. Her voice was cold, distant. "Maybe it's best if you leave. Just for a while. Your father needs time." "Time?" Richard barked. "He's not coming back. He made his choice." Richard yanked an old backpack from the closet and hurled it to the floor. The sound echoed like a door slamming shut, one that might never open again. "Take your things," Richard growled. "And don't ever come back." Alex rose slowly, his legs unsteady, his heart pounding. His palms were damp from gripping the edge of the table. The world he knew was collapsing. He stepped into the rain. It struck him like a wall, soaking his clothes in seconds. But the cold was nothing compared to the pain inside. He wandered through the dark streets, puddles reflecting the streetlights like shattered pieces of his life. Rain blurred with his tears as he walked, unsure where to go or who to trust. After hours of drifting, he stopped in front of an old boarded-up building. Desperate for shelter, he tried the door. It creaked, then a rough voice shouted from inside, "Go away! Please!" Alex begged. "Just for tonight." "I have nowhere else. I said leave," the man barked. The door slammed shut, echoing through the night. Alex stood frozen in the rain, trembling, not only from the cold, but from the weight of rejection. Eventually, he stumbled into the town's small park. Too exhausted to go further, he curled up on a damp bench, pulling his Alexit tightly around him. The wind cut through him like glass. His mind spun with fear and disbelief. Was this really the price of honesty? How could something as human as love lead to exile? But what Alex didn't know was that this night, this heartbreak, was not the end of his story. It was only the beginning. It was the start of a journey that would test Alex, shape him, and eventually bring him back with a strength no one could ignore. A strength powerful enough to challenge the very beliefs that once pushed him away. This wasn't just a story of rejection. It was a story of resilience, truth, and the courage it takes to live as yourself. Even as the world turned its back, Alex never understood why his family seemed to hate him or why life felt so unforgiving. Just as he drifted into restless sleep on that damp park bench, sudden laughter pierced the silence. Alex opened his eyes. A group of teenagers approached, their faces shadowed but their intentions clear. Well, one sneered. "What do we have here? A lost little freak in the rain?" Alex tried to stand, but his legs felt like stone. I don't want any trouble," he stammered. "Trouble?" Another mocked, smirking cruelly. "No, you are the trouble." Before Alex could react, they surrounded him, shoving him back onto the bench. Panic exploded in his chest as their taunts grew louder, sharper, crueler than the storm around him. "Look at you!" one laughed. Completely pathetic, something inside Alex snapped. Instinct took over. He forced himself up and ran, slipping on the wet pavement. His heart thundered in his chest. He didn't look back. He couldn't. The sound of footsteps chased him, pushing him forward. His lungs burned, his legs screamed, but he kept going. Then he saw it, a narrow alley just ahead. Without thinking, he darted in and ducked behind a dumpster. Pressing his back against the cold metal, he held his breath. The voices faded. The footsteps stopped. Only the rain remained. Alex collapsed, trembling. His soaked clothes clung to him like chains. Every part of him ached. Fear, exhaustion, and the sharp sting of loneliness cut deep. Crawling beneath a tree for shelter, he shivered as the cold crept into his bones. He thought of home, his father's rage, his mother's silence, and for the first time, he truly understood what it meant to be completely alone. "I'll prove them wrong," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I'll survive. I'll be more than this." What he didn't know was that everything was about to change. The rain hadn't stopped when Alex opened his eyes the next morning. His body ached from the cold, his damp clothes clung like punishment he couldn't escape. The gray sky loomed over a silent park. For a fleeting moment he wished it was all a nightmare, that he could wake up in his bed and forget everything. But the ache in his stomach and the emptiness in his chest said otherwise. He had nowhere to go. But he couldn't stay there. With heavy steps, Alex walked the quiet streets toward an uncertain future. Then he saw it, a small convenience store, its flickering, open sign barely glowing through the rain. Swallowing his nerves, he pushed the door open. A soft bell jingled overhead. Behind the counter stood a man in his late 50s, eyes tired, mustache twitching as he studied Alex. "What do you need?" the man asked flatly. Alex hesitated. "Just somewhere dry, just for a little while." "This isn't a shelter, kid," the man said, already turning away. "I can clean," Alex offered quickly. "Stock shelves. Anything, please." The man pointed toward the door, his voice sharp. I said no. "Leave before I call someone to make sure you don't come back." Alex's shoulders slumped. He stepped back into the rain. It felt colder now. He kept walking, block after block, until the town itself faded behind him. In the distance, an old abandoned factory loomed. Unsafe, broken, but at least it had a roof. As he approached, a voice growled from the shadows. "Hey, what do you think you're doing here?" A man in his mid-50s stepped forward, rugged face, leather Alexet worn with time, sharp eyes filled with suspicion. "I just need a place to stay," Alex said softly. "I won't cause trouble." "This place isn't for you, kid," the man replied, stepping closer. "Go back where you came from before this becomes a problem." Alex wanted to beg, to explain, but something in the man's tone told him it wouldn't matter. So he turned and walked away. Each step cracked his hope like glass under pressure. By the time night returned, so had Alex, to the same park bench. This time he sat beneath a street lamp. Maybe the light would keep the darkness away. But it didn't. "Well, look who's back," a mocking voice called. Alex's heart sank. The same group from the night before stepped into the glow, their faces half lit, half hidden. "Didn't we tell you to get lost?" one sneered. "This town doesn't need freaks like you." Alex's hands shook. "I don't want trouble," he whispered. But trouble had already found him. "Hey, freak. Lost again?" Another boy spat. Alex barely had time to react before someone shoved him hard. He stumbled, scraping his feet on the sidewalk, but somehow stayed upright. "I'm not looking for trouble," he repeated, his voice cracking as he tried to step away, but they blocked his path. The circle closed in. One boy yanked the strap of Alex's backpack, ripping it from his shoulder. "Ooh, what's this? Little runaways got secrets?" he taunted, digging through Alex's things. "Give it back!" Alex shouted, lunging forward. Another boy caught him mid-step and shoved him hard to the ground. His palms scraped against the rough concrete, stinging with pain. Cold, cruel laughter rang in his ears. Then, flashing lights. Blue and red. The boys froze as a police cruiser turned the corner, its spotlight sweeping across the scene. "Move along!" a voice boomed from the loudspeaker. The teens scattered like leaves in the wind. Alex stayed where he was, curled around his torn backpack. A car door opened, boots crunching against the gravel. "You all right?" the officer asked, extending a hand. Alex hesitated, then took it, brushing dirt from his clothes. "Yeah," he whispered, though his voice cracked beneath the weight of the lie. The officer studied him. "Not a safe place for someone your age. Do you have anywhere to go?" Alex paused. The truth felt dangerous. "I'll manage," he murmured. The officer didn't press. He just nodded, walked back to the cruiser, and drove off. The silence left behind felt heavier than before. Alex sat back on the bench, clutching the frayed strap of his bag. Hot tears slid down his cheeks. "Why does it always end like this?" he whispered. But somewhere inside that broken moment, a tiny ember sparked. He didn't know who would help him or when, but one thing was certain: he wasn't going to quit. Not this time. The next morning, the sun rose slowly, casting golden light over the sleepy town. Alex stirred on the park bench, his body aching from the cold. He stretched, wincing at the soreness. Around him, people started their day, sipping coffee, scrolling through phones. A few glanced his way, their expressions guarded, as if he didn't belong. Maybe he didn't. He slung his battered backpack over one shoulder and shuffled down the sidewalk, hunger gnawing at him. It had been more than a day since he'd eaten anything real. Turning a corner, he stopped. A small bakery sat ahead, warm air drifting through its open door, rich with the scent of bread and sugar. Alex stepped forward, then froze, uncertain. The door opened. A woman with silver-streaked hair stepped outside, balancing a tray of pastries. She spotted Alex and paused. "You okay, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice soft, filled with genuine concern. Alex looked away. "I'm fine," he mumbled. She frowned slightly. "You don't look it. Why don't you come inside for a minute?" He hesitated, heart pounding. But something in her tone felt safe. So he followed, warmth wrapped around him, not just from the oven, but from the space itself. She pointed to a small table. "Sit, I'll be right back." Moments later, she returned with a plate of fresh bread and a steaming mug of cocoa. She placed them in front of him without a word. "Eat," she said simply. Alex stared at the food, then took a slow, cautious bite. The taste was overwhelming. His eyes stung, tears forming. "Thank you," he whispered. She sat across from him. "I'm Lily," she said gently. "You don't have to tell me your story. Just know this: if you need a safe place, there's a room upstairs." No charge, no questions. Alex froze, stunned. "Why would you do that and for me?" Lily's smile faded, sadness flickering in her eyes. "Because once someone gave up on a boy I loved, and I swore I'd never let that happen again." Alex looked down at his plate, his throat tight with emotion. For the first time in days, he didn't feel invisible. In the days that followed, Alex swept floors, washed trays, and learned how to knead dough. Lily never pried. She never asked for details. She just offered calm support and structure, two things Alex had gone far too long without. But in a small town, word always gets out. One morning, as Alex cleaned the front counter, the bell above the door jingled sharply. A man stormed in, his voice already raised. "Lily, you've got that street kid working here now?" Lily didn't flinch. "He's helping. He's also staying here," the man scoffed. "People are talking, saying your bakery isn't safe anymore. Then they can take their business elsewhere," she replied firmly. He leaned in, bitter. "You'll regret this." The door slammed shut. Alex kept his eyes on the floor. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't mean to—" "Don't finish that sentence," Lily interrupted, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You are not the problem. Their fear is—" Alex nodded, chest heavy with guilt, but also with something else. Gratitude. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a place in the world for him. Lily stood by Alex through everything. Her support never wavered. But the town's judgment grew louder. Every time Alex stepped outside, he felt it. Stares, whispers, unkind silence. One evening, as he carried trash to the curb, a group of teenagers stepped from the shadows. "Well, well," one sneered. "Playing house now? Think baking cookies makes you one of us?" Alex kept his head down. "I'm not looking for trouble," he said softly. But they closed in, blocking his path. "Too bad," another muttered, shoving him. Alex stumbled but didn't fall. Before it could go further, Lily's voice cut through the night, sharp, commanding. "That's enough," she barked, storming out the front door. "Walk away now, or I'm calling the police." The teens hesitated, then scattered, but not before one muttered over his shoulder, "This isn't over." That night, Alex lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Fear pressed against his chest like a weight. "I don't know how much more I can take," he whispered. Passing by his door, Lily paused. She stepped inside and sat at the edge of the bed. "You're stronger than you think," she said, calm but firm. "Please don't give up." Alex looked at her through tear-filled eyes. "Why do you believe in me?" His voice was barely a whisper. Her reply was soft but fierce. "Because I've seen what happens when the world breaks someone, and I won't let it happen to you." For the first time in weeks, Alex felt something stir in his chest. Hope. Maybe things could change. Maybe he wasn't as alone as he thought. Weeks passed. Alex found comfort in the rhythm of bakery life, measuring flour, kneading dough, the sweet scent of cinnamon rolls rising into the air. Inside Lily's kitchen, there was warmth he hadn't felt since childhood, but outside nothing had changed. Whispers followed him down the street. Eyes tracked him like shadows. Then, one rainy afternoon, while organizing the cluttered storage room, Alex noticed a dusty wooden box beneath an old shelf. Its brass hinges groaned as he opened it. Inside was a bundle of aged letters tied with a frayed ribbon. Curiosity sparked. He untied it. As he read, time seemed to fall away. The letters were raw, emotional, filled with longing. Written by a man named Daniel to someone he called only R, Alex's breath caught. R wasn't just anyone. It was Richard, his father. His hands trembled. The man who had cast him out for being gay had once loved another man. The hypocrisy stung like a fresh wound, but beneath the anger, something deeper stirred. Sorrow. Had his father buried his truth out of fear? Was Alex's rejection born from pain Richard never dared to face? That evening, Alex brought the letters to Lily. "I found these in the back room," he said uncertainly. She took the bundle gently, her eyes softening with memory. "They belong to Daniel," she said quietly. "He was like family to me. He and your father, they were in love once." Alex's chest ached. "Did he love him?" he asked. She nodded, her voice thick. "He did, but fear is cruel. Richard chose his family's approval over the truth. He walked away. Daniel never recovered. He left town, and I heard he died alone." Alex was speechless. The pain in those letters was undeniable, and it echoed through his own life like a cruel reflection. Across town, his mother Isabella wrestled with guilt. Since Alex left, grief had crept into her days like fog. One night, while rummaging through an old box, she found an envelope. The handwriting was unmistakable. It belonged to her brother Leo, written decades ago from a hospital bed. He had been gay too. Cast out. Forgotten. "Linda, I never blamed you for staying quiet," the letter read. "But silence can cut deeper than words. I hope someday you'll understand what it feels like to be abandoned by your own blood." Tears blurred her vision. She had stayed silent when Leo was erased. She stayed silent again when Richard turned their son away. Now, her silence felt like a wound that would never close. Back at the bakery, Alex's healing was interrupted by a new threat. Charlotte found an envelope slid under the door. Inside was a note typed in bold, cold letters. "Stop sheltering that boy. He's a disgrace. Keep this up and you'll regret it." She handed it to Alex, her expression firm. "They're getting bold. But I've dealt with cowards before. We're not backing down." Alex tried to appear unbothered, but dread knotted in his stomach. And then it happened. One night, they returned to the bakery to find shattered windows and red spray paint across the walls. "Freak! Get out!" Alex froze, guilt flooding his chest. "This is my fault," he whispered. "I brought this on you." Charlotte gripped his shoulder, her voice fierce. "No, this isn't on you. This is what fear does when it's cornered. But we don't run, not from this." The next morning she hired a handyman. She didn't close shop. "Let them see we're still standing," she said. "That's how you take your power back." The threats escalated. And then Alex saw the face behind them. At a heated town hall about moral values, he recognized one of the boys who had once assaulted him. Now older, polished, sitting on the council. He was fanning the flames of fear with authority. Alex stood in the back, fists clenched, heart hammering. His throat tightened, but then his voice broke through. "You talk about morals," he said, trembling. "But where's the morality in hate? In throwing a kid out for being who they are?" The room fell silent. His words hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore. That night, Alex lay awake, thinking of everything: the letters, the threats, the silence. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was about breaking a cycle of shame that had haunted his family for generations. He didn't know how the fight would end. But one thing was certain: he wasn't alone anymore. The venom kept coming. Notes shoved under the door. A rock through the window, taped with another threat: "Leave town, freak." Alex's hands shook as he held it. Charlotte was already sweeping glass, her face steady. "We can't keep doing this," Alex whispered. "I'm putting you in danger." Charlotte looked up, fire in her eyes. "Let me tell you something, kid. People like this live off fear. The second we hide, they win. And I'm not letting them scare me away. Neither should you." Alex wanted to believe her, but the weight was crushing. One afternoon, the doorbell rang. Mason Thompson strolled in. Councilman, businessman, polished smile, eyes cold. "Heard you've been stirring controversy," Mason said smoothly. Charlotte emerged from the kitchen, her stare sharp. "What do you want, Mason?" "Just to talk. This town values tradition. Supporting this boy and his lifestyle, it's causing waves. You might want to think about what that means for your business, for your legacy." Charlotte crossed her arms. "Is that a threat?" "Just facts," Mason replied. "Is this worth losing everything?" Alex snapped, stepping forward. "Why does it matter to you? Why are you so afraid of someone like me?" For the briefest moment, Mason's mask cracked. Shame or pain flickered in his eyes. But then it was gone. "You wouldn't understand," he muttered, leaving as quickly as he came. That night, Alex found Charlotte at the kitchen table, tea cooling in her hands. "You don't have to fight this for me," he said gently. "It's not your job to protect me." She looked up, her expression heavy with memory. "You remind me of someone I once loved, Daniel. He was brave, but the world broke him. No one stood up for him, not even me, and I'll never forgive myself for that. I won't let it happen again." Alex swallowed hard, unable to speak. A few days later, he arrived to find one word spray-painted across the bakery door: abomination. His stomach churned. Charlotte's face hardened. "That's it," she said, pulling out her phone. "We're reporting this." "What if it makes things worse?" Alex asked. "Maybe," she admitted. "But silence won't save us." The police arrived indifferent. "We'll file a report," they said flatly. Alex realized then, change wouldn't come from silence, and it wouldn't come from those in power. It had to come from voices like his, voices that refused to be erased. The officer shrugged. "Unless you catch them in the act, not much we can do." Alex's frustration boiled over. "So nothing then? That's your justice?" The officer gave him a pitying look. "Welcome to small-town law, kid." But Charlotte wasn't done. Not by a long shot. She hired a local artist to paint a mural over the slur, a bold, radiant declaration of love. It read, "All are welcome here." Some in town grew angrier, but others were inspired. People who had stayed silent began showing up, standing beside them. At the next town hall, Alex stood again. This time, his voice didn't shake. "I've been called a disgrace, an abomination, and worse," he began. His words trembled, but his gaze was steady. "But what's truly disgraceful is the hate and fear tearing this town apart. I didn't choose to be who I am, but each of you has a choice. You can choose kindness instead of cruelty." From the council table, Mason shifted uneasily. For the first time, Alex didn't just see an enemy. He saw a man carrying his own battles. Later, in the dim parking lot, Mason approached. His voice was low, stripped of its usual authority. "You're brave. Braver than I ever was." Alex studied him. "What do you mean?" Mason hesitated, then sighed. "We all have our secrets. Some of us just hide them better." And then he walked away, leaving Alex with more questions than answers. That night, Alex sat alone, a flicker of hope glowing in his chest. The battle wasn't over, but maybe, just maybe, things were shifting. In the days before the center's opening, the bakery became a hub of activity. Volunteers, allies, and Charlotte worked alongside Alex, painting, planning, preparing, but tension lingered. The threats hadn't stopped, and Alex knew the grand opening wasn't just an event. It was a defining moment. Opening day, the air was crisp and clear. A modest stage stood before the bakery, now adorned with the mural and rainbow banners. A crowd gathered, supporters waving flags, skeptics watching, protesters at the edges. Backstage, Alex's hands shook. Charlotte squeezed his shoulder. "You're ready. Just speak your truth. They'll hear you." He nodded, peeking at the sea of faces. Familiar, unfamiliar. Mason stood among them, arms crossed, unreadable. Charlotte stepped up first. "This town needs to change," she said firmly. "Change isn't easy. It isn't fast. But it begins with courage. Moments like this." She turned to Alex. "Please welcome Alex." Applause mixed with murmurs as Alex stepped forward. "My name is Alex," he said, voice wavering but growing stronger. "A few months ago, I was thrown out of my home for being myself. I was called a disgrace, told I didn't belong, and for a long time I believed it. But I've learned something. I wasn't the problem. The problem is the fear poisoning this town." In the back, he spotted his mother, Isabella, eyes glistening. Pride? Regret? He couldn't tell. "I'm not here to change myself to fit your expectations," Alex continued. "I'm here to tell every kid who's ever felt unwanted, you are enough. You deserve to exist, to love, to be loved." The crowd was hushed until Mason's voice rang out. "What about tradition?" Alex met his gaze. "Tradition matters, but not when it's used as a shield for hatred. If your values demand you turn your back on others, maybe it's time to rethink those values." Before Mason could answer, another voice rose. "He's right." It was Isabella. She stepped forward, trembling but resolute. "I stayed silent too long. I lost my brother to fear. And I nearly lost my son, too, no more. I support Alex, and I'm proud of him." Her words rippled through the crowd. Some nodded. Others shifted uncomfortably. Then a group of protesters surged forward, chanting, banners raised. Alex's heart pounded. Before they could reach the stage, Charlotte and a line of allies stepped in front. "You'll have to go through us first," she said, eyes blazing. The crowd froze. Tension hung heavy. Then Mason raised a hand. "Enough," he said, voice hard. "This isn't the way." The protesters hesitated, then slowly backed off. Mason turned to Alex. "You've made your point. Let's see if you can live up to it." He walked away, the protesters trailing behind. Cheers erupted from the supporters. For the first time, Alex felt the tide beginning to turn. Alex returned to the mic, his voice steady. "This is what change looks like. Messy, uncomfortable, but necessary. And it starts with all of us." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause. Tears slipped down Alex's face. Later that night, outside the bakery glowing with light, Charlotte and Isabella flanked him. "You did good, kid," Charlotte said, her hand warm on his shoulder. "Real good." Alex looked up at the stars. "This isn't just for me," he said softly. "It's for anyone who's ever felt the way I did. And we're just getting started." The grand opening was a milestone, but the days that followed weren't easy. The center welcomed many, yet fear still lingered in the shadows. The hardest part was still ahead. A week later, Alex worked late when his mother appeared in the doorway, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "Hi, Alex," she whispered. "Can we talk?" Alex hesitated. Her silence had once cut him deeply, but he nodded. They sat across from each other, the room heavy with emotion. "I owe you an apology," Isabella began, her eyes shimmering. "I was wrong. I let fear guide me just like your father did. But when I saw you at the opening, you were so brave. I realized I've been a coward. Alex looked away. Why now? Why not when I needed you most? Tears streamed down her cheeks as she reached into her purse and pulled out a worn letter. It's from my brother Leo. Before he died, he wrote this. I ignored it, just like I ignored his pain. And yours. Alex unfolded the letter. The ink had faded, but the words remained strong. I hope one day you'll find the strength to stand up for what's right. His throat tightened. The past was painful, but maybe, just maybe, it was also a doorway to something better. I don't expect you to forgive me, Isabella said, voice trembling, but I want you to know I'm here now. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. Alex was quiet for a long time, his heart torn. I'm not ready to forgive you yet, he said gently. But I appreciate you trying. Maybe with time. Isabella nodded, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't the resolution she'd hoped for, but it was a start. Days later, another knock came. His father, Richard, stood awkwardly at the door, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Can we talk? His voice was rough, quieter than usual. Reluctantly, Alex stepped outside. I don't even know where to begin, Richard admitted. I've made more mistakes than I can count. I pushed you away because I was scared of what people would think. Scared of parts of myself I buried. But when I saw you on that stage, I realized you had more courage in you than I ever did. Alex's chest tightened. You threw me out, he whispered. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Richard's eyes welled. I can't undo it, but I want to try if you'll let me. Alex thought of walking away, cutting ties for good, but he remembered Lily's words. Forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you. With a deep breath, he finally spoke. It'll take time, but maybe we can start with a conversation. Months passed. Slowly, Alex began the hard journey of rebuilding. Isabella volunteered at the center. Richard showed up in ways he never had before. The bakery and the LGBTQ+ center became symbols of healing, love, and resilience. Alex often stood back, watching the community grow. The boy who once sat alone in the rain was now surrounded by family, both chosen and biological, who believed in him. One evening, after closing up, Charlotte joined him on the steps. You did it, she said with a grin. You changed this town, Alex smiled. I didn't do it alone. I had you, Charlotte nudged him playfully. Maybe, but you were the one brave enough to take the first step. Alex gazed up at the stars. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that the hardest battles are the ones worth fighting. And no matter how dark it gets, there's always a light waiting at the end. If Alex's story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments, what's a moment in your life when you had to choose between fear and courage?